Happy day. Season 2, episode 2. Dr. Gabriel, Dr. AJ, your friendly neighborhood chiropractors. Doc, happy to have you on again. You've been a guest on the podcast, and I've been a guest on your podcast now for this is the second season. Season 2, episode 2. Ready to rock. How you doing this morning?
Doing absolutely wonderful. Excited to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the stuff you saw on the first day in the office, going over that doctor's report. We usually give you guys these little packets to go over before we go over all of your information, and just chock full of really good stuff about health and healing. So we're going to dive into just some rules and some trivia and some other things in there that maybe you guys have forgotten about.
Absolutely. Going through school, we knew we wanted to serve a lot of people. We knew we wanted to help a lot of people because it's changed our lives, and everybody should have that opportunity. And I used to think that access to knowledge was the biggest variable in whether people would or would not stick with chiropractic, right? It's like, oh, if I could just tell them, if they could just hear me, everybody's going to get chiropractic care. And the truth is, there's so many other variables. It's very true, like things come up in life, and things are going to come up in life that are going to challenge whether or not you should be getting chiropractic care. Sometimes it's time constraints. Your hours might change, and it might be really, really hard to get here. It might be inconvenient to get chiropractic care, right? Are we going to stick with it? We might have a water heater go out, and finances might start to get a little bit tough, and you have to choose between Netflix and getting chiropractic. And it shouldn't be, but sometimes that's a little bit tough. And then sometimes, we can forget where we started. You know how many people are doing incredible, and then they're like, yeah, like it's just, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I feel like I'm fixed, right? And that's a tough thing too, which we've talked about before. Like I've been using a lawn service for about 4 years while I'm on the street. And I'm like, is it really because of the lawn service, or is it just because of all the other stuff that I've thought about stopping. I'm not going to because of the same principle that we're going to talk about today. But the point is we give you access to all this information to continue to make the informed decision day in and day out to invest into your health. Anything on that, bro?
Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree more. That's good. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's inside of this packet. If you would like a copy of this packet, if you want anything that's inside of here, why don't you just ask us, docs? But we're going to talk today about the 5 rules that are inside of the practice, okay? Number 1, Doc, tell me rule number 1.
Trust the process. We tell you guys a lot early on in care. We appreciate your trust. It's a lot of information early on. We're basically kind of changing the way you look at health and healing and switching your mind to healthcare rather than sick care, trying to be proactive about taking care of your body and get it in a state of regenerating and restoring rather than breakdown and degenerating. And it takes a lot of trust. I mean, we've just been ingrained with it for so many years. It's obvious to us how we should take care of our systems and how our body works, but there's just so much information that we don't have access to about how our system operates, how our nerves control everything in our body. So we just kind of make you drink out of a fire hose those first few days in the office and just tell you everything about what's wrong with your body, how long it's been there, how long it's going to take to go away. And that is the variable that comes in is sometimes we don't know how long. Everybody's body heals differently. It also depends on what we do outside of this office. But the one thing that we can control is that neurological function. We want to make sure that we get that variable fixed before we address anything else. And it takes a little bit of trust on your guys' part. So we really appreciate the people that stick with us and do trust us, because we know that if your nerves are firing more efficiently, your body's going to work better. Sometimes it just takes time, repetition.
It's consistent as gravity, right? So we did an exercise with the team, and I'm going to subluxate this spine by inducing a trauma. But if I were to let go of this spinal model, what is going to happen?
It's going to fall to the ground.
But how do you know it's going to fall to the ground?
Gravity.
Yes, gravity, but what if it didn't, right? Why do you have trust that it's going to fall to the ground?
It's just how things work.
It's just science, right? No. It's how things work. With time and repetition, if you drop something, it always falls, right? You can trust it because there's reproducible outcomes over time. How's that any different? Oh, great, it did. You imagine with this, right? Just like the one time ever, right? But the point is if you clear interference and you connect your brain to your body with time and repetition, you see it across the board, what percentage of people who stick with our recommendations get better? All of them, every single time, right? Does that mean everybody's perfect? No. Does everybody improve? Yes. Why? Because we're self-assessing, self-healing organisms. And when the nervous system has connection to the body, it can read and respond and heal and adapt the way it was designed to. We're self-healing. We're reconnecting ourselves with ourselves. We're reconnecting your brain to your body. You're going to heal 100% of the time, as consistent as gravity. Trust the process. It's not a matter of whether the process works. It's a matter of whether. So if you show up, you will get the results. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of trust. So we don't take it light. We may expect your trust, but we also expect us to earn your trust, which we do so through the education, re-education. We reassess you along the way. We re-educate you on where you started, where you're at. And if you ever feel like you're left behind or you don't understand it, there is a certain responsibility for you to ask. We cannot read your minds. It's that simple. We are a team. How many people, how often people come to us and like, hey, can I get a recheck on, I want to understand this better. And then they do, and they're like, oh yeah. And the response to that is never not, oh yeah. It's always, oh yeah, I remember that. But sometimes it's hard. We kind of forget because there's so much other stuff outside of these four walls telling us that we need drugs and surgeries. And if you have a symptom, it's the problem. And you know what? That's not the truth. And if it's not an emergency, it's not a last resort. Don't poison yourself to try to make yourself feel better. You cannot poison yourself to health. Okay. So number one, trust the process. You got anything on that? Anything else?
I mean, we say that people that stick with it always get better. And there's some notes and trivia questions about these rules. And one of them is stage two degeneration. How long is it there before it can form?
Stage 2, you're talking 15, 20 years.
Yeah, 15, 20 years. So after 6 months, you're like, I feel pretty similar. Some things are better, some things are worse.
Yeah.
It's because we're 6 months into a 20-year problem. It takes time. And that's where that trust comes in. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah. And there's typically, by the time you have stage 2, there's momentum of it actively getting worse, going to stage 3. So if you don't know where you're at, first of all, ask us. We'll pull up your x-rays. We'll show you. That you should know what phase of degeneration you're in, or if you're in it at all, but also have some context that if the ball is rolling downhill, if you're actively getting worse, it's, we have to stop that from getting worse before we go in the opposite direction. But also, the further you are down the hill, the easier it's going to be for your body to reverse back into it as well. So don't be concerned when you have highs and lows. Your body's relearning after 20 years of breaking down. It's relearning how to heal. We have really high expectations of it just to be like, yeah, I got it. I know what I'm doing again after 20 years of you abusing me. And I was like, have some grace with yourself. Understand that it took time and repetition to get there. It's going to take time and repetition to see the results. But that bleeds into the second rule in our practice. So rule number 1, trust the process. Rule number 2.
What is rule number 2, Doc?
Discipline matters. Discipline matters. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. We can talk about from a chiropractic standpoint, that's sticking to your schedule. It's really, really tough when people don't stick to their schedule. They have off weeks in there, and then they're not getting better. And there's so much time that goes in between adjustments of their bodies going through stress. So they don't have the strength to adapt to the stress that long yet, right? So discipline matters. You miss an appointment, you make it up. We have a power outage and the world gets crazy and you have to miss an appointment because of a reason that's logical and makes sense. Great. That's not going to be perfect. Just make it up, right? So don't be concerned if, Kennedy and the ladies up front are like, you can't cancel appointments. You can only move them. That's us telling them that they can't do this. Never get upset with them when they're holding you accountable to what we tell them to do. But the discipline of that matters. But from a lifestyle as well, right?
Yeah. You always say you can't out exercise a bad diet. We can't out adjust a bad lifestyle. So, if you're doing everything you can on your end, the body's going to heal more efficiently.
And so there's two ways to increase adaptability. So we run heart rate variability on people, right? Heart rate variability is measuring your adaptability, the strength of your nervous system. So if you think about like a bar graph, how strong is your nervous system? But then how much stress do you have? Stress is good. Don't get me wrong. Gravity's pressing down on us right now. So stress is good. Our muscles are contracting against it to adapt to it, but that takes up space on our brain's computer, right? And think about all the physical, chemical, and emotional stress that we go through on a daily basis, let alone I'm going to get into like 5G and computer screens and Wi-Fi and all the electromagnetic stress that we go through, right? Our job is to optimize our neurology and lower our stress so that the gap is as big as possible, which means you can go through extra stress without surpassing the strength of your nervous system, which when it does that, your nervous system can adapt to it. So our job is to raise the gap, right? So you want your dot on heart rate variability as high and midline as possible, telling us that the gap is as big as possible. Good. That's awesome. All right, we had to cut that out. I accidentally was too honest. So moving on, number 3, present.
Always have present time consciousness. So when you're in the office, be in the office.
Yes, this one means a lot to me.
Yeah, it's, we want you to be in the moment. We won't answer any questions. We know intimately what's going on with your health and your body, and all we want to do is help educate. Like you said earlier, it's all about the access to knowledge and information. Just be here. Be with us. We're a team. Nobody knows your body like you do. So
when you guys are in the practice, there are research articles, there's handouts, there's testimonials, there are, even on this screen behind us, there's so much to educate and equip you, right? I usually come out to the reception and everybody's just looking down on their nose, right? They get into the rooms and they're laying on their elbows, and if you're one of these people, put the phone down. Be here now. Be present. Take a few moments for you. Yeah, there's physiologically, we want your muscles to not be contracting against gravity as we come in and check your deep tendon reflex in your ankles. Okay. But how often do you just have a moment set aside for you, quiet time throughout some people 2 times a month, right? The majority of people just see us 2 times a month, right? It's so crucial. Lay down, breathe, let go of your stress. Think about you. Think about why you're doing what you're doing, and get present, and you will have a better experience in our practice, and your body will feel better as well.
Yeah. If you're a busy mom and you don't have any of the kids that day, tell me to skip you. Just lay there for longer. And then we'll send you back to your crazy life.
Yes, and we will. And that happens a lot. And sometimes it's on our request too, because we're like, you haven't brought you usually bring the kids, you don't have the kids. I'll be back in 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Just lay there and breathe.
Number 4, quitting is not an option. If I start on this, I'm not going to stop. So why don't you take this one? I like discipline and loyalty are the 2 biggest things that, when it comes to who I am and what I value. If you say you're going to do something, you follow through on it. That's how I was raised. It's not something that you try on. So before I get super passionate on it, why don't you take the reins on this?
It's something that's super passionate to him because he tried to quit his chiropractor many moons ago. 3 times? 4 times. And if he didn't go back, I don't think he'd be the man he is today. So it resonates very deeply with him. So it's one of those things we want to try to help you get to where he's at now, because we get it. Life happens sometimes, and sometimes it's easier to make our health a cost rather than an investment. If we put the necessary time and energy and money into preserving our health and our nervous system, everything else about life is going to be just easier and more enjoyable. We have these large stressors or financial hits or things that take place, and then this is one of the first things people seem to want to cut out, but it should be the last. With more stress, we need better functioning nerves, and that's what we're trying to shift that mindset. So if you go into it and we earn your trust, and quitting shouldn't be an option. It should be about just what else could I do to make my body heal and function as efficiently as possible.
Yeah. And if you're truly committed, we will not let finances prevent you from getting care long term. Things will pop up. eventually, right? And as long as you're fully committed, we're here and we're committed to you. Okay. I did try to quit. I did make excuses that made it seem like me quitting was out of my control. I had to quit, right? But also at the same time, I thought I was better. And so I stopped. And I went through an intensive program and stopped. And when I stopped, I was good. I thought I was good. I was like, yeah, I'm fixed. Good. Months later, things started popping up again. I'm like, oh crap. I should probably see that chiropractor and get it fixed again. Something new. I thought it was a new issue. So I went back. And I went through that 4 times over the course of 4 years. I did that. And finally I was like, hey, can I just like see you to keep it good? And he's like, yeah, doc, like not doc at the time, Gabriel. I think that'd be a good idea. Maybe you should have heard me the first 4 times. Did I hear him? No, I didn't hear him because I was just numb to the solution. I wasn't there for wellness care. I wasn't there for my health ever. And then when I finally shifted that to being there for health, and I valued what I had created more than anything, it became, how can I make it work? And so when we can shift our headspace to how can I make it work, we won't quit. When we understand that when we're at our best, we're better able to serve our families. We're better able to have consistency in our life. We don't get sick as often. We have a longer fuse, so we're not blowing up our spouse as much. Like, big time stuff. And so this is a big rule, or a big thing to understand. If you stop brushing your teeth, they will immediately begin to plaque. Right? If you stop with getting adjusted, your spine will immediately begin to plaque. Okay, so it's not like you can, like, oh, I'll just come in when I need it. Like, you need it, proactively throughout your entire life, or it will plaque. And if it plaques, spinal degeneration, right? We talked about a little bit of that, phase 2, over the course of 15, 20, 30 years, which can take some time, but then it's permanent. All it does is it robs us of our ability to serve our families long term. So,
what is rule number 5?
Don't leave your family behind. Big time quote that was shared with me at a recent conference. That is, if you want your kids to be where you were at in 25 years, don't bring them in. That hurts, but it's the truth, right? And if your parents had brought you in, and I'm talking to the majority, not everybody, but if your parents had brought you into a principled, neurologically based chiropractic office when you were a kid, a lot of the stuff that led you here in the first place would have never existed. So you can change the trajectory of your children and your spouse's life simply by fixing it before it presents with a chronic, permanent condition. Right on. If you'd like to look at one of these, we're going to leave this in the reception all week. We'll put it up by the front desk. You can grab it. You can look through it. There's a lot of good information, re-education on the things that we talked about on day 1 and 2. If it's like a copy, you can ask the front desk. We'll be sure to get you a copy. So we got all week. We've got the last week of our drive. We're at 250 donations on our goal to 1,000. Last week's always where everybody brings the most. And I think $292 towards our $500 goal of financial donation. So we have Venmo and cash, and you can write a check if you want to as well. But all of this is going to go to Heartland Community Services and make sure that we're doing our part to get back to those in need. So, any closing thoughts, my friend?
Excited to clear some river interference today.
An awesome week, guys. Love you. Talk to you soon.